Welcome. Hello. How's everyone today? Yeah. Hopefully well. Hopefully swell. Just like hopefully my sound is. It has been pretty good. There we go. Okay. Cool. Let's make sure, as we usually do, if this wants to load. There it is. Great. So because it's probably working, it usually is. If this wants to load. There we go. Nice. Then happy Wednesday, everybody. Happy life, and whenever you come across this, hopefully everything is going swell for you. Hopefully you're making the moves you need to make. Hopefully you're in your right place, like Radiohead said. So, speaking of which, speaking of our stream yesterday, like I said yesterday, well, Swami V did it to me. I had to I had to really sit and do some self-reflection, some self-analysis, some shadow work, as people like to call it. Because I had to again ask myself some important questions, I guess. Just how problematic are some of these problematic things out here? Just how much is it God's plan? God's plan. You know the song. Hard to know for sure. I'm not the big G, and it would probably break my human brain to try to wrap my head around what all the big G's got going on. But also, allegedly, it doesn't matter, actually. So, hey. Well, so basically, what Swami was saying yesterday in yesterday's chapter, from what I gathered from it at least, was a lot of, well, to a certain extent, the whole saying of what you resist persists. And also, kind of that thing about like a true pacifist is somebody who knows how to fight, knows how to do combat. Welcome in everybody who's coming in. Know, and deliberately chooses not to. Whereas somebody who doesn't know that stuff and then calls himself a pacifist is more kind of a coward. And that's also why he brought up that verse from the Bhagavad Gita. But also that's because at the point in that story where he's telling Arjuna, "You're a hypocrite, you're a coward," is also because that's where Arjuna's karma and his dharma had led him to. So even though, yeah, it's probably not going to be the most fun thing ever to watch your family, decapitating and disemboweling your other family, at a certain point, it's your duty, and at a certain point, this is God's plan. And so you got to do what you got to do in that sense. But what that would also mean is that Arjuna, as much as it might suck, is doing his true will, and Krishna's sitting there telling him exactly what it is. So if you want to look at that as knowledge and conversation of the holy guardian angel through the lens of the Bhagavad Gita, there you go. Because Crowley straight up said that any type of magic that isn't the pursuit of that knowledge and conversation of the holy guardian angel is black magic, straight up. And I know it's so super cool, so super spooky ooky to be some black magic whatever out here. But guess what? All those people are really doing is driving themselves crazy. So if that's the game you want to play, hey, do what thou wilt. But at the very least, I want to try to get some people maybe steered off of a course if that's the course they're taking. And so that's kind of some of the self-reflecting I was doing is at what point Am I being helpful? Is at what point is what I'm saying out here maybe helping people, maybe opening people's eyes up a little bit, opening their ears up a little bit, helping them to use some critical thinking skills, or at the very least just think, even if it's not very critical, at the very least just think and maybe see through some of this nonsense. And at what point am I starting to maybe sound like a broken record, maybe do the thing where it just seems like, because I'm not trying to build myself up by tearing others down, but also I know personally for me, I get pretty fed up of having to chop my way through the weeds of occult nonsense out here. And I can imagine it's the same for at least some other people out there, even if not everybody. Welcome into those of you who are just coming in. And I think it's something else that's important to keep in mind as well, is that some of these like popular websites, these popular like demonolators and their like sick Pokedex type of information about these demons, well, that's UPG. If you don't know what UPG is, that's unverified personal gnosis. So just because this person says this is what happened, too many people just take that at face value. Too many people just act like that's the way it always is, no matter what. And even every once in a while, sometimes those things were figured out in a group, but still outside of that handful of practitioners, it's still unverified personal gnosis. Anybody who's done group workings will know that, yeah, you can have a handful of people there who will all experience and see the same type of things. But here's where it becomes actually verified. When people, so you should be doing your magical journals, right? You should be documenting the things that happen, your downloads, all of that. When you compare those notes with somebody else, and providing that it's actually an actual divine transmission and not just something that, I don't know, they plagiarized from somebody else. Once you verify that, and then you guys verify that with some other random connection out there, once you guys, once you compare these notes up and you see that, oh, hey, this random practitioner in Finland and this other guy over in Japan and this girl and her sister in Africa, we somehow, the divine brought us all together. We were comparing notes, and wow, this spirit, yep, appeared this way to all of us, but none of us knew each other. None of us talked about this in advance. Now that's where you could start lumping it into more verified personal gnosis. But a lot of what's out here is straight up UPG, unverified personal gnosis. And people are just taking it at face value. I already made the analogy about the mechanic thing. And I just really want people to, at the very least, start using some critical thinking. But I get that at a certain point, you can lead a horse to water. And hey, at least I'm not teasing you up to the water and then charging you money to get through the gate to the actual water to drink it. But I get that some people want to pay for it and feel very exclusive. And well, who is it that really wants all that? Who is it that really feeds off all that stuff? It ain't the capital S self. I'll give you that hint. All right. So that's about what I wanted to say for now. Oh, actually, one other thing was that, so even though in some of the ways I'm leading the horse to water with some of this thelemic stuff, sure, there's people out there that get thelema twisted up, basically turn it into a Crowley religion, and now they start worshiping Crowley and trying to emulate Crowley. Well, they're the ones doing it wrong, and they're the ones who missed the point. Because in thelema, the whole purpose is to first and foremost figure out the fundamentals, practice the fundamentals, but then very pretty quickly get the knowledge and conversation of the holy guardian angel, get your true will, and then from there, guess how many people actually bail on thelema at that point because their holy guardian angel said, hey, you were supposed to do this up until now. Now here I am, and guess what? You need to actually hop on a plane and go to India and start learning Tantra. You need to actually go to China or Japan and find this specific Taoist group. You need to, whatever it is, you need to connect with your ATR roots, whatever it might be. And so that's why I'm just emphasizing that so much, because I can promise you, as somebody who's worked with goetic spirits, they will just dangle ridiculous things in front of your face. I've had straight up downloads for like whole grimoires I could write, and I have to check it. I have to test the spirit by the spirit. I have to say, you know what? I ain't playing that game, buddy. But other people will just write the grimoire and sell the grimoire. And goodness gracious. But at this point, I think I've said about all I need to say as far as that vein goes. I mean, I'm sure I'll still have other little kind of rants and ramblings and teachings, but yeah, I don't want to cross that line of where it just seems like all I'm trying to do is build myself up by tearing others down, because I do think a lot of these people mean well. I do think that a lot of them do have good, valuable teachings. I do think a lot of them have put in some work. Um, I don't think that all of them are complete frauds. In fact, I think very few are complete and total frauds. But even still, I already made that Marge Simpson piano lesson analogy where they're just staying a couple lessons ahead of the class, and then teaching based off that. And you could just do it all on your own. I know so many of you are so smart, so capable, so incredible, and are going to do great things. But the thing is you have to do these things. You know what I mean? You have to actually get down and dirty and cast a circle. You have to sit in meditation, and you have to do your best to use your discernment. So anyway, there we go. There's my preamble for the stream. The forecast was right today. Today, it is a very snowy day, and I'm loving it. I love the snow. I love the winter. I love all four seasons. But that's going to make trying to go work on these already hazardous roads that much more so. So we're going to put in a bit of a longer stream today. I'm thinking we could probably knock out about these next three chapters, which should all be pretty good ones. So zero ORT, change the name again. Sick. Back to the ORT. That's dope. Peace, J Balvale. Absolutely right about that point. Discernment is something really important to don't get lost. Straight up. And I'm glad to see you here. I hope you're having a wonderful day. And WVT says, grateful for your lives and you, Jay. Grateful for you, Dub. Appreciate you here always. And I'm looking forward to today's read. Once I get my my drink, I got the water here, but I got a nice crispy Diet Coke in the freezer I'm gonna go grab in a second. Get my music playing. We'll pull our tarot card, and then we'll get into it. But as Swami said yesterday too, I do think that the majority of people, you really have to get to that point for most people where you just get sick of your own crap, basically. You whatever that crap may be. I use the example of addiction. You get to the point where you realize that as much as it's hard to admit, man, I've really been just making a mess of things out here. And I'm just over it. I'm over it. You know what I mean? I'm sick of making myself sick with whatever substance. I'm sick of losing friends, losing family. I'm sick of just going from job to job to job. I'm over it. I'm ready to do better. Or whatever your example may be. You really kind of have to get to that point where you have gone all the way through and out the other side. And so yeah, that chapter definitely gave me some to reflect on. And I'm grateful for that. I'm grateful for magic, I'm grateful for spirituality, and I'm grateful for my friends who I have met through this path. All right, let me grab that drink. And then it's time to see what Swami think. Well, the tarot first, I guess. Okie doke. Let's do it. Let's see what the Book of Thoth has for us today. Oh, hold on. I got it. Hey, hey. I gotta not bump that. And I actually gotta switch back in here so I can see this chat. And Dub VT says, I hear that. Gave up weed this month. Since then, it's been getting better and better. I'll never go back, man. And I was an advocate. I feel that for sure, Dub. I've certainly had quite the love affair with that myself. You know, I feel that it's been, and in the ways smoking would be great in my life, it has been great. But also, I've been at a point now where I haven't smoked in, I don't remember exactly when I gave it up. It hasn't been like way super long because I was smoking quite a bit last year, but then finally I got to a point, I want to say it was like October or November. And so I've been also where I just haven't gone to it since. And it can be easy to slip back down that road because the last time before that I had had a very big period without any of it. Then it got to one of those points where I smoked again, and then having that tolerance taken back down, I got like, oh man, I got super baked. But also, I was doing some tarot, a little bit of drinking, so I was actually a little crossed. And it's in those moments you realize that these things can be used as spiritual tools for sure, but you need to be using them in that like maybe once a year type of way and in a kind of ritualistic type of way if you're going to use them. Because when it turns into that daily thing, whether it's drinking, whether it's weed, whether it's whatever, that's where, yep, it can get to be a problem for sure. It can get to be more of a hindrance than a help. So I'm proud of you. Good for you. I know you're putting in that work little by little, and so keep it up. You deserve to pat yourself on the back for that. And it can be real enjoyable. Hey, it can be real enjoyable, that's for sure. So that's why, again, I don't want to seem like a total and complete hater or like such a judgmental turd or anything like that, because mostly I'm speaking from the realm of at least somewhat understanding it. You know what I mean? Like I said, I've had spirits dangle little treats in front of my face. I remember in the very beginning thinking like, oh, this could, oh, look at this. This could actually bring you things like money and all that. I mean, I didn't initially come into it for those reasons. I looked at that more as like a perk, along with it, a bonus along with it. But even still, where I had those little moments of like, oh, there's people out here making money for this. Maybe this can be my path of success, of financial success, and all of that. But luckily, I've checked myself pretty quickly, or the divine has checked me pretty quickly. And so I just hope that there's more people who are going to end up on that route than like, oh my goodness, man. There's some people out. I mean, there's definitely levels to it. So there's some of these people out here who aren't nearly as bad as others, because I've seen some people out here who are literally charging like thousands of dollars for a consultation. Forget a whole course, just a consultation. And goodness, man. All right, let's get a little bit more shuffling going on here. What's our energy today, Book of Thoth? What do you cards have for us today? I feel like that card jumped in a way it wants attention, so let's just do that one. What does it feel like? What does it feel like? It feels like a court card to me. I want to say it's even a knight or a king. Oh nope, the fool. That was my next guess, or I was gonna say, or a trump. But I chickened out because I've been guessing Trump a lot lately and been wrong. Okay, well that is kind of a king. That's the zero, baby. So we pulled him before, but if we're pulling him again, then it's for a reason. So there he is, the unmanifest that comes into manifest, that zero, that animal nature nibbling at him, trying to slow him down. But he's going to step off that cliff either way. And this one specific, because that alchemy at the top that is yet to be alchemized, that's kind of more of the message I'm getting from it is, if we're looking at this as kind of the beginning aspect, the beginner aspect, we know the alchemy that needs to be done. We're already holding it in our hands, but we're still working to do it. We know that whatever those pesky animal wants and desires are, they're nibbling at us, but we're going to stay unfazed. We're going to take this journey. We've already got the great work in our bag. So it's just about going through and doing that work. Love it. All left to air. So in that elemental aspect, the mind. And so I said it before when we pulled him, that this could be that fresh mind that has yet to take that journey. So if maybe you find yourself to take those journeys of thought. So if maybe you do find yourself as somebody who's like, hopping around the occult, all kinds of different interests, not really knowing where to go. Well, the sun right there kind of could be, it certainly could be looked at as that HGA. And so now that sexual energy where it's at is growing, that kind of strongest creative energy we all have, we're knowing where to go with it. We're knowing what journey is next. So we might be all looking at a way that we're ready to be a fool about this pursuit of the HGA, and that's fine. It's fine to be a beginner. It's fine to be a fool, because then the next step on the path is starting to be the magician. Okay. All right then. And Zero says, yeah, I myself smoke too, but I never smoked too much or a lot because lost its true sense. Yep, yep, it definitely gets to be that way. Pretty easily, because you find yourself where you get at that point where you just want to smoke all the time. You're at work and you want to go out by the dumpster and smoke before you got to go back in and cook more food or serve your tables or build your house or whatever your job might be. You get to that point of you wake and bake, you sleep and bake, you whatever it might be. And I've also heard a lot of people say that they feel it affects their sleep in some way or another. Most people, I think, find that it's for in a bad way, where their dreams, they don't really have dreams if they've been smoking, or they'll have nightmares or things like that. Me personally, it's never really messed with my sleep in those type of ways. But in the sense that when you start getting to the point you feel you need to kind of rely on it to get to sleep, and then you come off it, it can be a little stressful those first couple nights. But breathing, I promise you, I've learned this one at this point for sure, that when you're doing that and now you're tripping yourself out, oh, how am I going to get to sleep? Just focus on those breathing exercises. In for in for 4, out for 6. Boxed breathing, in for 4, hold for 4, out for 4, hold for 4, something like that. Or even if you want to do the Wim Hof, which if I remember right is where you fill up your lungs and then you let out a little bit, and then you fill up your lungs again and you let out a little bit, so it's almost like you're puffing your lungs up as much as you can. At least I think that's how the Wim Hof method goes. If not, then well, I guess that's still a breathing method, because I'll do that sometimes too, and it can certainly help lull you to sleep. All right then, we yapped for a while today, but that's okay. For those who are meant to hear it, they'll hear it. A couple of them are already here. Some of them will catch it on the replay. But today, the chapter we were excited for from yesterday, The Secret of Work. Let me take a nice swig. And then Zero also says everything that make you addicted to isn't useful, no matter what it is. Need that sattvic way of doing. Absolutely, Zero. Equilibrium. That's why that first yoga I wanted to bring everybody was that Samat Vam, the yoga of equilibrium. Because you could also look at that as like the yoga of sattva. All right, then. Let's do it. The secret of work. Helping others physically by removing their physical needs is indeed great. But the help is great according as the need is greater and according as the help is far reaching. If a man's wants can be removed for an hour, it is helping him indeed. If his wants can be removed for a year, it will be more help to him. But if his wants can be removed forever, it is surely the greatest help that can be given him. There it is. Swami's telling us all. So one day at a time, for sure, one day at a time with the vices and getting rid of those different vices. And hey, every time you do that, there's part of your purity work for obtaining that knowledge and conversation. All right, he says, spiritual knowledge is the only thing that can destroy our miseries forever. Any other knowledge satisfies wants only for a time. It is only with the knowledge of the Spirit that the faculty of want is annihilated forever. So, helping man spiritually is the highest help that can be given to him. He who gives man spiritual knowledge is the greatest benefactor of mankind, and as such, we always find that those were the most powerful of men who helped man in his spiritual needs, because spirituality is the true basis of all our activities in life. Well, highlight all of that. I want to say it was I want to say it was Bobby Hemmett who said, I remember it really stood out to me. He said that the gods might not care about some of the things that you might be so tripped up about and worried about as sin, because the actual greatest sin is purposefully keeping other people in ignorance. A spiritually strong and sound man will be strong in every other respect, if he so wishes. Until there is spiritual strength in man, even physical needs cannot be well satisfied. Next to spiritual comes intellectual help. The gift of knowledge is a far higher gift than that of food and clothes. It is even higher than giving life to a man, because the real life of man consists of knowledge. Ignorance is death, knowledge is life. Life is of very little value if it is a life in the dark, groping through ignorance and misery. Next in order comes, of course, helping a man physically. Therefore, in considering the question of helping others, we must always strive not to commit the mistake of thinking that physical help is the only help that can be given. It is not only the last, but the least, because it cannot bring about permanent satisfaction. The misery that I feel when I am hungry is satisfied by eating, but hunger returns. My misery can cease only when I am satisfied beyond all want. Then hunger will not make me miserable. No distress, no sorrow will be able to move me. So, that which tends to make us strong spiritually is the highest. Next to it comes intellectual help, and after that, physical help. All right, we'll get that last line. And then up here, let's see. Therefore, in considering the question of helping others, We must always strive not to commit the mistake of thinking that physical help is the only help that can be given. The miseries of the world cannot be cured by physical help only. Until man's nature changes, these physical needs will always arise, and miseries will always be felt, and no amount of physical help will cure them completely. The only solution of this problem is to make mankind pure. Ignorance is the mother of all evil and all the misery we see. Let men have light, let them be pure and spiritually strong and educated. Then alone will misery cease in the world, not before. We may convert every house in the country into a charity asylum. We may fill the land with hospitals, but the misery of man will still continue to exist until man's character changes. And I've said that already too, is that hopefully the rising tide can lift all boats. And that some people out here who might be on some silly time, they'll decide that they're done with the circus performance and they're ready to just step it up. We read in the Gita again and again that we must all work incessantly. All work is by nature composed of good and evil. We cannot do any work which will not do some good somewhere. There cannot be any work which will not cause some harm somewhere. Oh no. Every work must necessarily be a mixture of good and evil. Yet we are commanded to work incessantly. Good and evil will both have their results, will produce their karma. Good action will entail upon us good effect. Bad action, bad. But good and bad are both bondages of the soul. The solution reached in the Gita in regard to this bondage producing nature of work is that if we do not attach ourselves to the work we do, it will not have any binding effect on our soul. We shall try to understand what is meant by this non attachment to work. Please, please, Swami. Okay. So we want to get all work is by nature composed of good and evil. Probably that next one. We cannot do any work which will not do some good somewhere. There cannot be any work which will not cause some harm somewhere. And if we do not attach ourselves to the work we do, it will not have any binding effect on our soul. This is the one central idea in the Gita. Work incessantly, but be not attached to it. Samskara can be translated very nearly by inherent tendency. Using the simile of a lake for the mind, every ripple, every wave that rises in the mind when it subsides does not die out entirely, but leaves a mark and a future possibility of that wave coming out again. This mark, with the possibility of the wave reappearing, is what is called samskara. Every work that we do, every movement of the body, every thought that we think leaves such an impression on the mind stuff. And even when such impressions are not obvious on the surface, they are sufficiently strong to work beneath the surface subconsciously. What we are every moment is determined by the sum total of these impressions on the mind. What I am just at this moment is the effect of the sum total of all the impressions of my past life. This is really what is meant by character. Each man's character is determined by the sum total of these impressions. If good impressions prevail, the character becomes good. If bad, it becomes bad. If a man continuously hears bad words, thinks bad thoughts, does bad actions, his mind will be full of bad impressions. And they will influence his thought and work without his being conscious of the fact. In fact, these bad impressions are always working, and their resultant must be evil, and that man will be a bad man. He cannot help it. The sum total of these impressions in him will create the strong motive power for doing bad actions. He will be like a machine in the hands of his impressions, and they will force him to do evil. Similarly, if a man thinks good thoughts and does good works, the sum total of these impressions will be good, and they, in a similar manner, will force him to do good even in spite of himself. When a man has done so much good work and thought so many good thoughts that there is an irresistible tendency in him to do good, in spite of himself, and even if he wishes to do evil, his mind, as the sum total of his tendencies, will not allow him to do so. The tendencies will turn him back. He is completely under the influence of the good tendencies. When such is the case, a man's good character is said to be established. As the tortoise tucks its feet and head inside the shell, you may kill it and break it in pieces, yet it will not come out. Even so, the character of that man who has control over his motives and organs is unchangeably established. He controls his own inner forces. Nothing can draw them out against his will. By this continuous reflex of good thoughts, good impressions moving over the surface of the mind, the tendency for doing good becomes strong. And as the result, we feel able to control the indriyas, the sense organs, the nerve centers. Thus alone will character be established. Then alone a man gets to truth. Such a man is safe forever. He cannot do any evil. You may place him in any company, there will be no danger for him. There is a still higher state than having this good tendency, and that is the desire for liberation. You must remember that freedom is the soul of the goal of all yogas, and each one equally leads to the same result. And that's what Crowley says too. And that's like why what I said yesterday about good and evil in that stream. Because when you're doing these things that pull you away from your true will, you're, whether you want to admit it or not, you're just creating more bondage. Because I guarantee you, basically, no one out here preaching these type of things, trying to act like they're on some Sri Ramana level of or Swami Vivekananda level of non-attachment, actually is. In fact, that's why I say pay attention, because if you just pay attention to them, you can tell. Oh yeah, no, no, they're still pretty human. By work alone, men may get to where Buddha got largely by meditation or Christ by prayer. Buddha was a working jnani, Christ was a bhakta, but the same goal was reached by both of them. The difficulty is here. Liberation means entire freedom, freedom from the bondage of good as well as from the bondage of evil. And so there you go. Because if you try to buy your way into heaven basically with these good deeds, and you start just getting attached to those as well. So on the opposite end of the coin, you'll be looking in the mirror thinking about, oh, look at how good I am, look at how great I am, look at how I do this and how I do that, and yada yada yada. Bondage all the same. So really, are you working towards your true will? Or are you working towards away from it, working towards what you want? A golden chain is as much a chain as an iron one. There is a thorn in my finger, and I use another to take the first one out. And when I have taken it out, I throw both of them aside. I have no necessity for keeping the second thorn, because both are thorns after all. So the bad tendencies are to be counteracted by the good ones, and the bad impressions on the mind should be removed by the fresh waves of good ones, until all that is evil almost disappears or is subdued and held in control in a corner of the mind. But after that, the good tendencies have also to be conquered. Thus, the attached becomes the unattached. Work, but let not the action or the thought produce a deep impression on the mind. Let the ripples come and go. Let huge actions proceed from the muscles in the brain, but let them not make any deep impression on the soul. Zero says this is so insightful. Absolutely. Absolutely. I love Swami Vivekananda. And I'll give you an example of this because it's nothing that none of this is going to be stuff that's done overnight by almost anyone. So you're going to have to work on it little by little. Little by little, you're going to get those little tests put in front of you and you're going to have to pass them. But I'll tell you, there was one night where the goddess and I were out and we had done a delivery, taken some food to someone, and the person was missing their drink. And they kind of gave a little sass about it, like, oh, there was supposed to be a drink here. And I said straight up, I said, hey, I'll run back and get it for you. I really don't mind. It's not like it was all that far away. I said, I'll go get it right now. What was it supposed to be? But then still kind of in that passive aggressive type of way, they were all, it's fine, I'll just drink water or whatever. And so again, I said, I'll go get it right now. And then again, they just said, it's fine. And then turned to walk in their apartment or whatever. And I told the goddess straight up, I said, that right there is a great example of this. If I start getting all in my head about this person one way or another, and this whole ordeal right here, it's just more bondage. It's just more nonsense. So we just have to you just have to that and that's where that's really that unattachment right there. Like I can't be feeling bad about what's happened here. I tried to make it right. The person said, even if they said it in this passive aggressive way, don't worry about it. um I can't let it get to me, or it's just going to create more of that bondage. And Zero says, yes, people behave like that sometimes. Definitely. Hey, I get it. I would have been a little bummed out too if I was expecting like I don't know, whatever drink it was supposed to be and then it wasn't there. But also if the person was like willing to go get it, then well, then right there the problem's getting fixed, you know what I mean? So then that's where it ultimately comes more on that person for acting that way when the problem could have been fixed. I mean, and I admit it. I realized like this is my bad. I should have double checked and noticed that. But ultimately, yeah, you can't be getting in your head about it. You can't be attaching to it, and then especially to the point where now you're going to be thinking about it for the next whatever 30 minutes, hour, even maybe the whole day, depending on how sour the whole thing was. All right, how can this be done? We see that the impression of any action to which we attach ourselves remains. I may meet hundreds of persons during the day, and among them meet also one whom I love. And when I retire at night, I may try to think of all the faces I saw, but only that face comes before the mind, the face which I met perhaps only for 1 minute and which I loved. All the others have vanished. My attachment to this particular person caused a deeper impression on my mind than all the other faces. Physiologically, the impressions have all been the same. Every one of the faces that I saw pictured itself on the retina. Oh, nice, page 49. And the page took the pictures in. Wait, and the brain took the pictures in. And yet there was no similarity of effect upon the mind. So, see, he's given a more loving example right there. And still, exactly. And Zero says, like the story about two monks helping to cross a woman in a river. I don't think I know what story you're talking about. Most of the faces, perhaps, were entirely new faces, about which I had never thought before. But that one face of which I got only a glimpse found associations inside. Perhaps I had pictured him in my mind for years, knew hundreds of things about him, and this one new vision of him awakened hundreds of sleeping memories in my mind. And this one impression, having been repeated perhaps 100 times more than those of the different faces together, will produce a great effect on the mind. Therefore, be unattached. Let things work. Let brain centers work. Work incessantly, but let not a ripple conquer the mind. Work as if you were a stranger in this land, a sojourner. Work incessantly, but do not bind yourselves. Bondage is terrible. All right. And let's see. Zero says one time two monks were crossing a river, but then they encounter a woman and ask for help to cross. To one of them to cross. One of them carried the woman on his back and helped. The other one was just looking when both the monks. Oh, hang on, he's still writing. Bondage is terrible. And I'll tell you something. I'll tell you a real exercise that'll help with that bondage. Crowley's Libra 3. Because then with the thought, you can start snapping yourself with the rubber band. You can start whatever way you go about it to discipline yourself into not getting phased in those ways, not thinking on those things. All right, let's see. While I'm waiting for Zero, I'll keep ahead. This world is not our habitation. It is only one of the many stages through which we are passing. Remember that great saying of the Sankhya: the whole of nature is for the soul, not the soul for nature. The very reason of nature's existence is for the education of the soul. Oh, wow. So it does matter after all. It has no other meaning. It is there because the soul must have knowledge and through knowledge free itself. So, there, until the point it's free and then it really doesn't matter, it does matter. Okay. Zero adds. So he said, when both the monks keep walking, the monks talk, and the one that just looked say, why do you help a woman? We can't even talk to her. The other just said, I leave the woman when we cross the river. Why you still carry her? I think he's still writing more. So I'll keep reading more for a sec. If we remember this always, we shall never be attached to nature. We shall know that nature is a book in which we are to read, and that when we have gained the required knowledge, the book is of no more value to us. Instead of that, however, we are identifying ourselves with nature. We are thinking that the soul is for nature, that the spirit is for the flesh, and as the common saying has it, we think that man lives to eat and not eats to live. We are continually making this mistake. We are regarding nature as ourselves and are becoming attached to it. And as soon as this attachment comes, there is the deep impression on the soul, which binds us down and makes us work not from freedom, but like slaves. So he uses this example of a book. Let me give you another example. If you are somebody who likes to play video games, well, Are you gonna actually play the game and follow the story and do whatever you're supposed to do in the game to beat the game? Or the whole time are you gonna sit there and protest, oh, this don't matter, this is just a game, this ain't even real, blah blah blah. Or even watching a movie. Or the whole time you just gonna sit in the theater screaming, this is just a movie, this is just a movie, this is just a movie, it doesn't matter. Or are you gonna just shut your mouth and watch the movie? And if anything, even immerse yourself a little bit in the movie. Okay, so Zero said that's it. Is about doesn't matter if she was a woman or a man. The monk just did what needed to be done, but the other monk attached to the action that challenged his beliefs. Okay, I got you. I got you. Hold on, I'm gonna go back and reread it all now that you've got it in there. So he says, one time two monks were about crossing a river. Oh, and anybody keep in mind, English isn't Zero's first language. Zero speaks Spanish, so he's doing his best on some of this. One time, two monks were about crossing a river, but then they encountered a woman and asked for help to cross. To one of them carry the woman, so one of them carried the woman in his back and helped to cross. The other one was just looking. When both the monks keep walking, the monks talk, and the one that just looked say, why do you help a woman? We can't even talk to her. And the other said, I leave the woman when we cross the river. Why do you still carry her? Okay, I'm following you now. No, you don't, Zero, you don't need to say sorry. I'm just letting for anybody, if anybody comes in here and reads or hears me reading it and wants to be a hater, then get, first of all, get out of here with that crap. Second of all, yeah, you do really well with your English for it not being your first language. I see now that I read the whole thing on there like that. Okay. Very cool. Appreciate you for sharing that story. And Dub VT says, oh no, we're going to enjoy it. I came to the movies or bought the game to enjoy it. I'm taking the good with the bad, and that's a great analogy too. Thank you, Dub. I appreciate that. I do my best. I find it can be very helpful to teach in that type of way. Oh, and actually, I was going to highlight this last bit right here too. We are continually making this mistake. So, right, it would be a mistake to all of a sudden start convincing yourself that you're this character of the video game or this character of the movie. I mean, you want to immerse yourself into it, but only up to a certain point, and we could call that non-attachment, where you're in it but not of it. Oh, come on. Okay, there we go. And you're welcome, Zero. No problem at all. Okay. The whole gist of this teaching is that you should work like a master and not as a slave. Work incessantly, but do not do slaves' work. Do you not see how everybody works? Nobody can be altogether at rest. 99% of mankind work like slaves, and the result is misery. It is all selfish work. Work through freedom, work through love. The word love is very difficult to understand. Love never comes until there is freedom. There is no true love possible in the slave. If you buy a slave and tie him down in chains and make him work for you, he will work like a drudge, but there will be no love in him. Well, and I've certainly experienced that in my own ways. I've had these jobs out here where I'll let them drive me crazy because I'll start to do that exact thing. I'll start to feel that, and how much of that am I actually just doing that to myself? I mean, yeah, sure, a lot of people out here are lazy, but they're also in that same predicament. You know what I mean? And so you start to get frustrated, you start to get upset instead of, like he already said in this book, just working for work's sake. And right here, work through freedom, work through love. True love never comes until there is freedom. So when we ourselves work for the things of the world as slaves, there can be no love in us, and our work is not true work. This is the true work done for relatives and friends, and is true of work done for our own selves. Selfish work is slave's work, and here is a test. Every act of love brings happiness. There is no act of love which does not bring peace and blessedness as its reaction. Real existence, real knowledge, and real love are eternally connected with one another and the three in one. Where one of them is, the others also must be. They are the three aspects of the one without a second. The existence, knowledge, bliss. Well, dang. Every act of love brings happiness. There is no act of love which does not bring peace and blessings. Real existence, real knowledge, and real love are eternally connected with one another. Really, so existence, knowledge, and love. There's a new spin on your three guna. There's a new spin on your trinity. When that existence becomes relative, we see it as the world. That knowledge becomes, in its turn, modified into a knowledge of the things of the world. And that bliss forms the foundation of all true love known to the heart of man. Therefore, true love can never react so as to cause pain, either to the lover or to the beloved. Suppose a man loves a woman. He wishes to have her all to himself and feels extremely jealous about her every movement. He wants her to sit near him, to stand near him, and to eat and move at his bidding. He is a slave to her and wishes to have her as his slave. That is not love. It is a kind of morbid affection of the slave insinuating itself as love. It cannot be love because it is painful. If she does not do what he wants, it brings him pain. With love, there is no painful reaction. Love only brings a reaction of bliss. If it does not, it is not love. It is mistaking something else for love. When you have succeeded in loving your husband, your wife, your children, the whole world, the universe, in such a manner that there is no reaction of pain or jealousy, no selfish feeling, then you are in a fit state to be unattached. Oh boy. And so, what do you think exactly? So, what what type of time do you think some of these people out here wanting to do Goetia, do black magic, all to make people pay and to get money and to get sex and all that? Oh, buddy. All right. And WVT says, and I understand that a little deeper now too. Thank you. To be in it, not of it. If I can't beat a boss on a game, that doesn't mean to go take it out on people. Right, Dub. Straight up. Exactly. Or even in the game of life, if we want to look at life in that simulation way, like it's all just a game or it's all just a dream. What's like Sri Ramana said, if it's all just a dream, why be scared of it? And especially why start, I don't know, why start freaking out? Why start losing your cool? Might as well operate from that place of love. Again, do what thou wilt shall be the whole of the law. Love is the law, but love under will, because sometimes we got our duty out here. So that means that only second to that duty should be love. That's gonna be that's it. Krishna says, "Look at me, Arjuna. If I stop from work or for one moment, if I stop from work for one moment, the whole universe will die. I have nothing to gain from work. I am the one Lord, but why do I work?" Or Shiva, let's throw in the example of Shiva too, right? When Shiva's not sitting in perfect stillness, what is he doing? Yoga, aka magic, aka, you know what I mean? So we do this stuff because God does this stuff. And Zero says there is a great book called The Game of Life by Florence Scovel Hill. Cool. Thank you for that recommendation. Here, let me write that down real quick. The Game of Life by Florence Scovel Hill. Okay, got it. Thank you. I am the one Lord, but why do I work? Because I love the world. God is unattached because he loves. That real love makes us unattached. Wherever there is attachment, the clinging to things of the world, you must know that it is all physical attraction between sets of particles of matter, something that attracts two bodies nearer and nearer all the time, and if they cannot get near enough, produces pain. But where there is real love, it does not rest on physical attachment at all. Such lovers may be 1,000 miles away from one another, but their love will be all the same. It does not die and will never produce any painful reaction. Man, I think I'm just going to highlight that whole thing. Goodness gracious. Swami Vivekananda. To attain this unattachment is almost a life work. But as soon as we have reached this point, we have attained the goal of love and become free. The bondage of nature falls from us, and we see nature as she is. She forges no more chains for us. We stand entirely free and take not the result of work into consideration. Who then cares for what the results may be? Yeah, who then cares? Do you ask anything from your children in return for what you have given them? It is your duty to work for them. And there the matter ends. In whatever you do for a particular reason, a city or a state, assume the same attitude towards it as you have towards your children. Expect nothing in return. If you can invariably take the position of a giver, in which everything given by you is a free offering to the world, without any thought of return, then will your work bring you no attachment. Attachment comes only when we expect a return. If working like slaves results in selfishness and attachment, working as a master of our own mind gives rise to the bliss of non attachment. We often talk of right and justice, but we find that in the world, right and justice are mere baby's talk. There are two things which guide the conduct of men: might and mercy. Hmm. The exercise of might is invariably the exercise of selfishness. All men and women try to make the most of whatever power or advantage they have. Mercy is heaven itself. To be good, we all have to be merciful. Even justice and right should stand on mercy. All thought of obtaining return, I'm going to highlight that one real quick. Even justice and right should stand on mercy. All thought of obtaining return for the work we do hinders our spiritual progress. Nay, in the end, it brings misery. There is another way in which this idea of mercy and selfless charity can be put into practice. That is, by looking upon work as worship in case we believe in a personal God. Here we give up all the fruits of our work unto the Lord, and worshiping Him thus, we have no right to expect anything from mankind for the work we do. The Lord Himself works incessantly and is ever without attachment. Just as water cannot wet the lotus leaf, so work cannot bind the unselfish man by giving rise to attachment to results. The selfless and unattached man may live in the very heart of a crowded and sinful city. He will not be touched by sin. Okay, Zero, thank you. He says, I send the audiobook to your Instagram. All right, thank you. Oh, this highlighter's starting to run low. I can tell because when I got to do a bigger section like this, then it'll start getting a little lighter, but that's okay. I got more around here somewhere. And if not, highlighters are cheap. The idea of complete self sacrifice is illustrated in the following story. After the battle of Kurukshetra, the five Pandava brothers performed a great sacrifice and made a very large gifts to the poor. All people expressed amazement at the greatness and richness of the sacrifice and said that such a sacrifice the world had never seen before. But after the ceremony, there came a half of whose body was golden and the other half brown, and he began to roll on the floor of the sacrificial hall. He said to those around, "You are all liars. This is no sacrifice." "What?" they exclaimed. "You say this is no sacrifice. Do you not know how money and jewels were poured out to the poor and everyone became rich and happy? This was the most wonderful sacrifice any man ever performed." But the mongoose said, "There was once a little village, and in it there dwelt a poor Brahmana with his wife, his son, and his son's wife. They were very poor and lived on small gifts made to them for preaching and teaching. There came in that land a 3 years' famine, and the poor Brahmana suffered more than ever. At last, when the family had starved for days, the father brought home one morning a little barley flour, which he had been fortunate enough to obtain, and he divided it into 4 parts, one for each member of the family. They prepared it for their meal, and just as they were about to eat, there was a knock at the door. The father opened it, and there stood a guest. Now, in India, a guest is a sacred person. He is a god for the time being and must be treated as such. So the poor Brahmana said, "Come in, sir, you are welcome." He set before the guest his own portion of the food, which the guest quickly ate and said, "Oh, sir, you have killed me. I have been starving for 10 days, and this little bit has but increased my hunger." Then the wife said to her husband, "Give him my share." But the husband said, "Not so." The wife, however, insisted, saying, "Here is a poor man, and it is our duty as householders to see that he is fed. And it is my duty as a wife to give him my portion, seeing that you have no more to offer him." Then she gave her share to the guest, which he ate, and said he was still burning with hunger. So the son said, "Take my portion also." It is the duty of a son to help his father to fulfill his obligation. The guest ate that, but remained still unsatisfied. So the son's wife gave him her portion also. That was sufficient, and the guest departed, blessing them. That night, those 4 people died of starvation. A few granules of that flour had fallen on the floor, and when I rolled my body on them, half of it became golden, as you see. Since then, I have been traveling all over the world, hoping to find another sacrifice like that, but nowhere have I found one. Nowhere else has the other half of my body been turned into gold. That is why I say this is no sacrifice. Man, this idea of charity is going out of India. Great men are becoming fewer and fewer. When I was first learning English, I read an English storybook in which there was a story about a dutiful boy who had gone out to work and had given some of his money to his old mother, and this was praised in 3 or 4 pages. What was that? No Hindu boy can ever understand the moral of that story. Now I understand it when I hear the Western idea, every man for himself. And some men take everything for themselves, and fathers and mothers and wives and children go to the wall. That should never and nowhere be the ideal of the householder. Now you see what karma yoga means, even at the point of death, to help anyone without asking questions. Be cheated millions of times and never ask a question, and never think of what you are doing. Never vaunt your gifts to the poor or expect their gratitude, but rather be grateful to them for giving you the occasion of practicing charity to them. Thus, it is plain that to be an ideal householder is a much more difficult task than to be an ideal sannyasin. The true life of work is indeed as hard as, if not harder than, the equally true life of renunciation. Man, Swami will do it to you. Oh, goodness. All right, well, that does it for that chapter. We can definitely do at least one more. Man, he'll do it to you. All right, Swami, I hear you. I hear you loud and clear. I've said what I need to say, and hopefully it'll help at least some people. And other than that, I'm shutting up. Let them do what they want. Let them cheat these people. Let them do whatever. I'm worrying about me. Thank you, Swami V. What is duty? That'll be our next chapter, but I need to take a good drink. And Zero says being a householder is even harder. Right. Definitely. Definitely. I've said it before. I've been there before, where at a point in my life I was ready to just say, screw it all. I'm going to the mountains. I'm going to the forest. No one's gonna see me again. Yeah, that didn't work out so swell. It just led me right back to where I started. But now I'm grateful. I'm grateful because I see how much more I need that than I need to go hiding away from the world, talking about I can't with all these idiots out here, all of that type of stuff. Been there, done that. I'm over it. Been over it. All right. Yeah, let's definitely do at least this one. A little over an hour now, hour and 13. We can probably at least knock this one out in the 2 hour window. Snow's been falling on and off, but it is supposed to clear up by this evening, so I might be able to go work this evening. But in the meantime, we'll hit this. And Zero says definitely the Dharma of the West is grounding to higher knowledge as the Eastern did. Yep. Yeah. And so I feel like, especially America, but kind of the West at a whole, is about at that point where it's kind of burning itself to the ground, and hopefully from the ashes, something actually more worthwhile will be born. I mean, it doesn't help that they've all been kind of propagandized into burning that world down, but hey, nothing I can really do to change it. So, like Usher said, gotta let it burn. Okay, what is duty? This should be chapter 4. It is necessary in the study of karma yoga to know what duty is. If you have to do something, if I have to do something, I must first know that it is my duty, and then I can do it. The idea of duty, again, is different in different nations. The Mohammedan says what is written in his book, the Quran, is his duty. The Hindu says what is in the Vedas is his duty. And the Christian says what is in the Bible is his duty. We find that there are varied ideas of duty, differing according to different states in life, different historical periods, and different nations. The term duty, like every other universal abstract term, is impossible clearly to define. We can only get an idea of it by knowing its practical operations and results. When certain things occur before us, we all we have all a natural or a trained impulse to act in a certain manner towards them. When this impulse comes, the mind begins to think about the situation. I'm going to highlight real quick. And Zero says, yeah, the karma of the West is wanting to sell everything. Yeah, fire sale. But that's exactly why. Because that what he already said too, this Western idea of every man for himself, rather than this understanding that it takes a village, as they say. It's all of one big family. There is no separate races other than the race of mankind. You know what I mean? Even if some of us have a different skin color, we're all still the race of mankind. Okay. Sometimes it thinks that it is good to act in a particular manner under the given conditions. At other times, it thinks that it is wrong to act in the same manner, even in the very same circumstances. The ordinary idea of duty everywhere is that every good man follows the dictates of his conscience. But what is it that makes an act a duty? If a Christian finds a piece of beef before him and does not eat it to save his own life, or will not give it to save the life of another man, he is sure to feel that he has not done his duty. But if a Hindu dares to eat that piece of beef or give it to another Hindu, he is equally sure to feel that he has too not done his duty. The Hindu's training and education make him feel that way. In the last century, there were notorious bands of robbers in India called thugs. They thought it is their duty to kill any man they could and take away his money. The larger the number of men they killed, the better they thought they were. Ordinarily, if a man goes out into the street and shoots down another man, he is apt to feel sorry for it, thinking that he has done wrong. But if the very same man, as a soldier in his regiment, kills not one but 20, he is certain to feel glad and think that he has done his duty remarkably well. Therefore, we see that it is not the thing done that defines a duty. To give an objective definition of duty is thus entirely impossible. Yet there is duty from the subjective side. Any action that makes us go Godward is a good action and is our duty. Thank you, Swami V. Any action that makes us go downward is evil and is not our duty. Thank you, Swami V. From the subjective standpoint, we may see that certain acts have a tendency to exalt and ennoble us, while certain other acts have a tendency to degrade and to brutalize us. But it is not possible to make out with certainty which acts have which kind of tendency in relation to all persons, of all sorts and conditions. There is, however, only one idea of duty which has been universally accepted by all mankind, of all ages and sects and countries, and that has been summed up in a Sanskrit aphorism thus: do not injure any being. Not injuring any being is virtue. Injuring any being is sin. Oh yeah, and just wait until some of these spirits start trying to trick you into doing things like animal sacrifice. And oh boy, what are you gonna tell them? No? Yeah, duh. The Gita frequently alludes to duties dependent upon birth and position in life. Look, here's a really great example. There was a point where, with a certain goetic spirit, it was teasing me. It was teasing me with all these riches that could be made, but would I be willing to sacrifice my cat for that? I thought about it for about 5 seconds and said, not a chance. Nope, not a chance. I just really don't care about money more than I love this sweet, perfect little animal. And so, nice try. But hey, there are other people who can't be quick enough to grab the knife. So just understand what some of this really is getting you into. The Gita frequently alludes to the duties dependent upon birth and position in life. Birth and position in life and in society largely determine the mental and moral attitude of individuals toward the various activities of life. It is therefore our duty to do that work which will exalt and ennoble us in accordance with the ideals and activities of the society in which we are born. But it must be particularly remembered that the same ideals and activities do not prevail in all societies and countries. Our ignorance of this is the main cause of much of the hatred of one nation towards another. An American thinks that whatever an American does in accordance with the custom of his country is the best thing to do, and that whoever does not follow his custom must be a very wicked man. A Hindu thinks that his customs are the only right ones and are the best in the world, and that whosoever does not obey them must be the most wicked man living. This is quite a natural mistake which all of us are apt to make, but it is very harmful. It is the cause of half the uncharitableness found in the world. When I came to this country and was going through the Chicago Fair, a man from behind pulled at my turban. I looked back and saw that he was a very gentlemanly looking man, neatly dressed. I spoke to him, and when he found that I knew English, he became very much abashed. On other occasion, on another occasion in the same fair, another man gave me a push. When I asked him the reason, he was also ashamed and stammered out an apology, saying, "Why do you dress that way?" The sympathies of these men were limited within the range of their own language and their own fashion of dress. Much of the oppression of powerful, and okay, so there's a good example too of the, I really do understand the whole, I can't with all these NPCs, I can't with all these idiots. But do you want to step your game up and like our Lord Christ, forgive them, Father, for they know not what they do? And Zero says that strong attachment to personality not only make people do crazy things like animal sacrifice, sometimes the same attachment hurt them or take their lives unconsciously. Yeah, man, exactly. Exactly, without a doubt. And I mean, everybody's got to figure out their own things in their own ways. That's funny, page 63. Everybody's got to figure out their own things in their own ways. But some people, I guess that's their karma, is that they've got some hard lessons to learn. But I guess we can't really be judging that as much as we can just worry about our paths and our wills and move in that way. Much of the oppression of powerful nations on weaker ones is caused by this prejudice. It dries up their fellow feeling for fellow men. That very man who asked me why I did not dress as he did and wanted to ill treat me because of my dress may have been a very good man, a good father, and a good citizen. But the kindliness of his nature died out as soon as he saw a man in a different dress. Strangers are exploited in all countries because they do not know how to defend themselves. Thus, they carry home false impressions of the peoples they have seen. Sailors, soldiers, and traders behave in foreign lands in very queer ways, although they would not dream of doing so in their own country. Perhaps this is why the Chinese call Europeans and Americans foreign devils. They could not have done this if they had met the kindly sides of Western life. Therefore, the one point we ought to remember is that we should always try to see the duty of others through their own eyes, and never judge the customs of other peoples. Bust out the highlighter before I switch the page, because whatever he finishes up that sentence with will be highlighted. Highlit, whatever that past tense is going to receive a highlighting. Never judge the customs of other peoples by our own standard. I am not the standard of the universe. I have to accommodate myself to the world, and not the world to me. So we see that environments change with the nature of our duties, and doing the duty which is ours at any particular time is the best thing we can do in this world. Let us do that duty which is ours by birth. And when we have done that, let us do the duty which is ours by position in life and in society. There is, however, one great danger in human nature, viz., that a man never examines himself. He thinks he is quite as fit to be on the throne as the king. Even if he is, he must first show that he has done the duty of his own position, and then higher duties will come to him. When we begin to work earnestly in the world, nature gives us blows right and left and soon enables us to find out our position. No man can long occupy satisfactorily a position for which he is not fit. There is no use in grumbling against nature's adjustment. He who does the lower work is not therefore a lower man. No man is to be judged by the mere nature of his duties, but all should be judged by the manner and the spirit in which they perform them. Thank you, Swami. Later on, we shall find that even this idea of duty undergoes change, and that the greatest work is done only when there is no selfish motive to prompt it. Yet it is work through the sense of duty that leads us to work without any idea of duty. When work will become worship, nay, something higher, then will work be done for its own sake. Highlight all that real quick. We shall find that the philosophy of duty whether it be in the form of ethics or of love, is the same as in every other yoga. The object being the attenuating of the lower self so that the real higher self may shine forth. The lessening of the frittering away of energies on the lower plane of existence so that soul may manifest itself on the higher ones. This is accomplished by the continuous denial of low desires which duty rigorously requires. The whole organization of society has thus been developed, consciously or unconsciously, in the realms of action and experience, where by limiting selfishness, we open the way to an unlimited expansion of the real nature of man. There, see, Swami V even just told you about how important getting in true contact, true knowledge and conversation, true union. Yoga is union with that holy guardian angel is. Higher self, he calls it. Duty is seldom sweet. It is only when love greases its wheels that it runs smoothly. It is a continuous friction otherwise. How else could parents do their duties to their children, husbands to their wives, and vice versa? Do we not meet with cases of friction every day in our lives? Duty is sweet only through love, and love shines in freedom alone. Yet, is it freedom to be a slave to the senses, to anger, to jealousies, and 100 other petty things that must occur every day in human life? In all these little roughnesses that we meet with in life, the highest expression of freedom is to forbear. Women, slaves to their own irritable, jealous tempers, are apt to blame their husbands and assert their own freedom, as they think, not knowing that thereby they only prove that they are slaves. So it is with husbands who eternally find fault with their wives. Chastity is the first virtue in man or woman, and the man who, however he may have strayed away, cannot be brought to the right path by a gentle and loving and chaste wife is indeed very rare. I'll say, the world is not yet as bad as that. We hear much about brutal husbands all over the world and about the impurity of men. But it is not true. But is it not true that there are quite as many brutal and impure women as men? Man, in today's day and age, too. Holy heck. If all women were as good and pure as their own constant assertions would lead one to believe, I am perfectly satisfied that there would not be one impure man in this world. What brutality is there which purity and chastity cannot conquer? A good, chaste wife who thinks of every other man except her own husband as her child and has the attitude of a mother towards all men will grow so great in the power of her purity that there cannot be a single man, however brutal, who will not breathe an atmosphere of holiness in her presence. Similarly, every husband must look upon all women, except his own wife in the light of his own mother or daughter or sister. That man again who wants to be a teacher of religion must look upon every woman as his mother and always behave towards her as such. And that is why that advice from my now passed away friend has turned out to be some of the most valuable advice. You don't need to be worrying about all these demons, and you don't need to be worrying about all these things like curses and hexes and just all this silly stuff. Just work with goddesses. The position of the mother is the highest in the world, as it is the one place in which to learn and exercise the greatest unselfishness. The love of God is the only love that is higher than a mother's love. All others are lower. It is the duty of the mother to think of her children first and then of herself. But instead of that, if the parents are always thinking of themselves first, the result is that the relation between parents and children becomes the same as that between birds and their offspring, which, as soon as they are fledged, do not recognize any parents. Blessed indeed is the man who is able to look upon woman as the representative of the motherhood of God. Whew. And that's why I work with goddesses. And I think that's why, like, the demon Astaroth, I think most people who have worked with that demon have found how insistent that demon is on, hey, will you just call me up in the goddess form? Will you not work with me in this demon form unless like the work really calls for it? Like, will you just call me up as Astarte, please? Because not to say that the demon Astaroth doesn't have certain functions that can be appropriate, useful and appropriate, right, Trav? However, you're just gonna probably get a lot more bang for your buck by calling up Astarte. Blessed indeed is the woman to whom man represents the fatherhood of God. Blessed are the children who look upon their parents as divinity manifested on earth. Better highlight all that last little bit. The only way to rise is by doing the duty next to us, and thus we go on gathering strength until we reach the highest state. A young sannyasin went to a forest. There he meditated, worshipped, and practiced yoga for a long time. After years of hard work and practice, he was one day sitting under a tree, when some dry leaves fell upon his head. He looked up and saw a crow and a crane fighting on top of the tree, which made him very angry. He said, "What? Dare you throw these leaves upon my head?" As with these words he angrily glanced at them, a flash of fire went out of his head. Such was the yogi's power, and burnt the birds to ashes. He was very glad, almost overjoyed at this development of power. He could burn the crow and the crane by a look. After a time, he had to go to the town to beg his bread. He went, stood at a door, and said, "Mother, give me food." A voice came from inside the house. "Wait a little, my son." The young man thought, "You wretched woman, how dare you make me wait? You do not know my power yet." While he was thinking thus, the voice came again. "Boy, don't be thinking too much of yourself. Here is neither crow nor crane." He was astonished. Still, he had to wait. At last the woman came, and he fell at her feet and said, "Mother, how did you know that?" She said, "My boy, I do not know your yoga or your practices. I am a common everyday woman. I made you wait because my husband is ill and I was nursing him. All my life I have struggled to do my duty. When I was unmarried, I did my duty to my parents. Now that I am married, I do my duty to my husband. That is all the yoga I practice. But by doing my duty, I have become illumined. Thus, I could read your thoughts and know what you had done in the forest. If you want to know something higher than this, go to the market of such and such a town where you will find a Vyada, which is the lowest class of people in India who used to live as hunters and butchers, who will tell you something that you will be very glad to learn." The sannyasin thought, "Why should I go to that town and to a Vyada?" But after a while, he had seen. His mind opened a little, so he went. When he came near the town, he found the market, and there saw at a distance. Zero says, "I know this story. It is amazing." Nice. Okay. So when he came near to the town, he found the market, and there saw at a distance a big fat viada, cutting meat with big knives, talking and bargaining with different people. The young man said, Lord help me, is this the man from whom I am going to learn? He is the incarnation of a demon, if he is anything. In the meantime, this man looked up and said, Oh, Swami, did that lady send you here? Take a seat until I have done my business. The sannyasi thought, What comes to me here? He took his seat. The man went on with his work, and after he had finished, he took his money and said to the sannyasi, Come, sir, come to my home. On reaching home, the Vyada gave him a seat, saying, Wait here, and went into the house. He then washed his old father and mother, fed them, and did all he could to please them. After which he came to the sannyasi and said, Now, sir, you have come here to see me. What can I do for you? The sannyasi asked him a few questions about soul and about God, and the Vyada gave him a lecture which forms a part of the Mahabharata called the Vyada Gita. It contains one of the highest flights of the Vedanta. When the Vyadas finished his teaching, the sannyasi felt astonished. He said, Why are you in that body? With such knowledge as yours, why are you in a Vyada's body? And doing such filthy, ugly work? My son, replied the Vyada, no duty is ugly, no duty is impure. My birth placed me in these circumstances and environments. In my boyhood, I learned the trade. I am unattached. I tried to do my duty well. I tried to do my duty as a householder, and I tried to do all I can to make my father and mother happy. I neither know your yoga, nor have I become a sannyasa, nor did I go out of the world into a forest. Nevertheless, all that you have heard and seen has come to me through the unattached doing of the duty which belongs to my position. Oh man. No duty is ugly. No duty is impure. There is a sage in India, a great yogi, one of the most wonderful men I have ever seen in my life. He is a peculiar man. He will not teach anyone. If you ask him a question, he will not answer. It is too much for him to take up the position of a teacher. He will not do it. If you ask a question and wait for some days, in the course of conversation he will bring up the subject, and wonderful light will he throw on it. He told me once the secret of work. Let the end and the means be joined into one. When you are doing any work, do not think of anything beyond. Do it as worship, as the highest worship, and devote your whole life to it. Devote your whole life to it for the time being. Thus, in the story, the Vyada and the woman did their duty with cheerfulness and wholeheartedness, and the result was that they became illuminated, clearly showing that the right performance of the duties of any station in life without attachment to results leads us to the highest realization of the perfection of the soul. What did I already say about, that fast food place in town? You know, the one with the old lady there who treats every single person like her child, who's so happy, so loving. She's doing her true will. It is the worker who is attached to results that grumbles about the nature of the duty which has fallen to his lot. To the unattached worker, all duties are equally good. and form efficient instruments with which selfishness and sensuality may be killed, and the freedom of the soul secured. We are all apt to think too highly of ourselves. Our duties are determined by our deserts to a much larger extent than we are willing to grant. Competition rouses envy, and it kills the kindliness of the heart. To the grumbler, all duties are distasteful. Nothing will ever satisfy him, and his whole life is doomed to prove a failure. Let us work on, doing as we go, whatever happens to be our duty, and being ready to put our shoulders to the wheel, then surely shall we see the light. And the goddess did put, I told her to write this note down here. All phenomena are sacraments. All right then. Let's see, 105. So we got hour and 45 minutes right now. This next one, I think, was a bit over 10 pages, about 14 pages. Who's still here? Who's still rocking? Does anybody want to do more, or should we call it a day? Well, I highlight a little of this last one. Let us work on doing as we go, whatever happens to be our duty, being ready to put our shoulders ever to the wheel, and surely we shall see the light. Dub says, tapping out. Just got in, was walking home the whole read. Walked from Chester, VA to Hopewell, VA. Just got in. Nice. Nice. That sounds like a good walk. Well, no worries. Go ahead, get yourself some rest. That definitely is quite a bit of food for thought. And so we could call it there for the day. He says, your timing was divine, I swear. Well, thanks, Dub. I'm glad it could be for you. I'm sure it will be for everybody else in their own time. That's usually how the game goes. All right then. Well, we can go ahead and put a pin in it there, put a bookmark in it there. And I said in yesterday's stream how this week we'll try that new format. Even though this one's pretty sick, this book's pretty sick. We'll try that format of maybe doing 2 classes a week. We can try that for at least a week or two, couple weeks, see how it flows. And if it feels like, nah, this is too much, I don't like the change ups, I like just doing one thing at a time, then we'll go back and stick with that. But if people are like, nah, I enjoy it, it's kind of refreshing to have two studies, then, well, we'll just move accordingly either way. This next chapter will be fire though. So once we get back into this, we'll be on the chapter of we help ourselves, not the world. Hmm. I'm saying. I'm saying. Cool. Well, I mean, I do kind of got to use the bathroom anyway, so that works out great. All right, then, you guys. Well, much love. Appreciate those of you who are rocking with me on this one. Wherever you may be, whenever you may be, may you quit resisting nature. May you start to see all phenomena as sacraments. May you really sit with these words. I'm gonna. So that definitely is a good place to stop it. I'm gonna have to think on this one too. Swami V, he'll get you. So anyway, Much love to you all. This has been Jay Baldale. This has been Swami Vivekananda's Karma Yoga, the yoga of action. I'll catch you on the next one, and bye bye.